A smart woman chooses growth over comfort because she understands one simple truth: comfort never created a powerful story. Comfort never shaped a leader. Comfort never transformed an ordinary life into an extraordinary one. Growth, however, demands that you step into uncertainty, challenge yourself, and rise above everything that tries to hold you down. And smart women choose exactly that path, no matter how uncomfortable it feels at first. When a woman chooses growth, she is not choosing the easy way, she is choosing the right way. She knows that every great achievement requires sacrifice. Every meaningful change requires discipline. Every breakthrough requires breaking something within: old habits, old beliefs, old fears. And she is willing to do that inner work even when no one is watching, even when no one is clapping for her, even when she feels alone in the process. Choosing growth means she refuses to stay stuck in the identity that society has handed to her. She refuses to let limitations placed upon her become her destiny. She refuses to shrink herself just to make others comfortable. Growth for her is not just a choice, it's a commitment. A commitment to becoming a better version of herself every single day. But choosing growth is not glamorous. It is not decorated with applause. It often begins with discomfort, confusion, and sometimes even pain. Growth demands that she confront her weaknesses instead of denying them. It asks her to be honest with herself about what needs to change. It challenges her to let go of people who do not support her evolution, and this can hurt. But she knows that temporary pain is better than permanent regret. A smart woman also understands that growth is not a moment, it's a lifestyle. It's found in the books she reads instead of gossip she avoids. It's in the discipline of waking up early to work on her dreams. It's in choosing knowledge over noise, clarity over chaos, purpose over popularity. She realizes that while comfort offers short-term pleasure, growth offers long-term power. And she knows the world will sometimes misunderstand her. People may say she has changed. People may feel threatened. People may question why she no longer participates in the things she once tolerated. But she does not allow external opinions to lower her internal standards. She would rather be misunderstood for rising than be accepted for staying small. She also understands that growth happens when she pushes herself beyond what she thinks she can do. When she chooses to learn new skills, take on new challenges, and embrace opportunities that scare her. She knows that fear is a sign of expansion. Fear is not a stop sign. It's a signal that she is moving towards something bigger than her current self, and she embraces that fear with courage. A woman choosing growth does not hide behind excuses. She doesn't blame her past, circumstances, or other people. She looks at her life and says, if I want something different, I must do something different. This mindset becomes her superpower. It frees her from limitations and empowers her to create her own future. And growth teaches her patience. She knows success is not built overnight. She understands that consistency is more powerful than intensity. She keeps going even when progress is slow, even when no one notices, even when the finish line feels far away. She knows that every small step counts. Every habit, every action, every decision adds up to something extraordinary over time. Growth also opens her eyes to her inner strength. As she evolves, she learns how powerful she truly is. She discovers a voice she never knew she had. She develops confidence rooted not in validation, but in self-awareness. She becomes emotionally stronger, not because life gets easier, but because she gets wiser. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this: when a woman grows, she inspires others to grow too. Her courage becomes contagious. Her discipline becomes admirable. Her transformation becomes a message to others that change is possible, that greatness is achievable, that reinvention is a gift available to anyone willing to work for it. Choosing growth means she becomes the architect of her own identity. She stops living as the person she was told to be and starts becoming the person she decides to be. She no longer waits for opportunities, she creates them. She no longer waits for miracles, she becomes one. She understands that comfort may feel safe, but it keeps her stagnant. Growth may feel scary, but it leads her to strength, wisdom, and fulfillment. And so every single day, she chooses to rise. She chooses to learn. She chooses to expand. She chooses to challenge herself. Because she knows that staying the same is far scarier than evolving. A smart woman chooses growth over comfort because she knows her future self is counting on her and she will not disappoint her. A smart woman invests in herself because she knows that she is her greatest asset. She understands that the world may take many things away from her: jobs, opportunities, relationships, comfort. But the one thing no one can ever take is the strength, wisdom, and skills she builds within herself. This is why she chooses to grow from the inside out. She knows that if she wants a better life, she must first build a better version of herself. She invests in her mind because she knows that her thoughts shape her reality. Instead of wasting time worrying about what others think, she spends that time learning something that will elevate her. While others scroll endlessly through distractions, she opens books, listens to mentors, watches content that teaches, and surrounds herself with ideas that challenge her to think bigger. She knows that the mind is like a garden. If she doesn't plant seeds of growth, it will naturally grow weeds of doubt, fear, and insecurity. And she refuses to let that happen. She invests in her skills because she knows that talent may be gifted, but excellence is earned. She never stops learning, not because she is not good enough, but because she knows she can always be better. She takes courses, practices new abilities, develops her craft, and stays curious. She doesn't compare herself with others, she compares herself with who she was yesterday. Every day, she is evolving. She knows that in a world that is constantly changing, the woman who keeps upgrading herself will never be left behind. She invests in her emotional well-being because she knows that mental strength is one of the most powerful forms of wealth. She understands that emotional maturity doesn't come from age, it comes from awareness. She reflects, she heals, she forgives, not because others always deserve it, but because she deserves peace. She learns how to respond rather than react. She learns how to let go rather than hold on to what hurts. She realizes that protecting her inner world is the foundation of her outer success. She invests in her physical health, not for the sake of appearance, but for the sake of energy, discipline, and longevity. She knows that a healthy body supports a powerful mind. She understands that a woman who feels strong within her body walks differently, speaks differently, and shows up differently. She respects her body by giving it rest, nourishment, and movement. She knows she cannot pour into her dreams from an empty cup. She invests in her dreams because she knows that vision without action is just imagination. She doesn't wait for the perfect moment, she creates the moment. She takes small steps, makes plans, sets goals, and moves with intention. She understands that every big achievement once began as a small decision. She believes in her potential even when the results are not visible yet. She has faith in the process because she has faith in herself. A smart woman invests in her environment as well. She surrounds herself with people who push her forward, not those who pull her down. She chooses friends who inspire growth, not gossip. She looks for mentors who challenge her thinking, not individuals who keep her comfortable. She knows that energy is contagious, and she is very selective about the energy she allows in her life. She would rather walk alone than walk with people who walk away from their own growth. She invests in her boundaries because she knows that protecting her time, energy, and dreams is not selfish. It is essential. She understands that not everyone deserves access to her mental space. She learns to say no without guilt and yes without fear. She knows that her priorities matter, her peace matters, her journey matters. She invests in her confidence not through validation from others, but through the promises she keeps to herself. Every time she shows up, every time she stays consistent, every time she chooses discipline over distraction, her confidence grows. She doesn't need others to tell her she is capable. She knows she is because she sees her own progress every day. She doesn't build confidence from compliments. She builds it from commitment. She invests in her future because she knows that the woman she wants to be tomorrow depends on the choices she makes today. She saves, plans, builds, and prepares. She doesn't depend on luck. She depends on her effort. She knows that a future of strength, stability, and success is created through actions taken consistently over time. And she invests in her happiness because she knows that life is not only about success, it's also about joy. She gives herself permission to rest, to celebrate, to enjoy small moments, to spend time with people she loves, to live fully. She doesn't postpone happiness for a future achievement. She finds it in the journey. She realizes that true success is not measured by what she accumulates, but by who she becomes along the way. A smart woman invests in herself because she knows that self-investment is not a luxury, it is a responsibility. When she grows, everything around her grows. When she becomes stronger, her life becomes stronger. When she evolves, her world evolves. She doesn't wait for someone to choose her, she chooses herself. She doesn't wait for someone to believe in her, she believes in herself. And that belief becomes the foundation of everything she achieves. She knows she is worth the time, the effort, the healing, the learning, and the love she pours into herself. And that is why she rises higher than the woman she used to be. Because the best investment she ever made was in herself. A smart woman sets boundaries without guilt because she understands that her energy, her peace, and her emotional space are sacred. She knows that without boundaries, people will take more than she can give, expect more than she can offer, and demand more than she can sustain. She realizes that boundaries are not walls meant to push people out. They are doors that allow the right people in and keep the wrong energies out. And she has learned often through painful experiences, that without boundaries, she loses herself. She has spent years trying to please others, trying to be everything for everyone, trying to keep everyone happy, even when it meant breaking herself quietly. But life taught her something important. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot keep giving to a world that takes without pausing to understand what you need. So she chooses courageously to draw lines that protect her heart, her time, and her worth. Setting boundaries does not mean she loves less, it means she loves more wisely. It means she values herself enough to choose relationships that nourish her, not drain her. She knows that people who truly care for her will respect her boundaries, not question them. Those who get offended by her boundaries were only benefiting from her lack of them. She understands that no is not a negative word, it is a full sentence. It is a declaration of self-respect. It is an act of self-care. She no longer feels guilty for saying no to things that exhaust her, no to opportunities that don't align with her purpose, no to commitments that leave her overwhelmed, and no to people who take more than they give. She knows her time is precious, and she refuses to waste it on things that don't reflect her values or contribute to her well-being. A smart woman sets boundaries because she knows that every time she says yes to something that drains her, she is indirectly saying no to something that could have helped her grow. She refuses to betray herself by pleasing others. She refuses to sacrifice her mental health for temporary approval. She refuses to carry emotional weights that are not hers to bear. She has learned how to speak up when something does not feel right. She expresses her needs clearly, calmly, and confidently, not with anger, not with fear, but with clarity. She understands that her feelings are valid, her limits are valid, her needs are valid. She no longer apologizes for protecting her inner world. She knows that peace is not something you find, it is something you create, and boundaries are the foundation of that peace. She also understands that boundaries are not only about saying no to others, they are also about saying yes to herself, yes to rest, yes to personal time, yes to pursuing dreams, yes to healthy relationships, yes to mental and emotional healing. She knows that she cannot grow if she is constantly overwhelmed. She cannot evolve if she is always available. She cannot succeed if she keeps sacrificing her needs for the comfort of others. Sometimes, setting boundaries means letting go of people she deeply cares about. And that is one of the hardest lessons she learns. But she knows that loving someone does not mean she must tolerate disrespect or inconsistency. She knows that some people belong to her heart, but not to her life. And she chooses to walk away not out of anger, but out of self-respect. She also understands that boundaries are essential in the workplace. She knows the difference between dedication and exploitation. She works hard, but she does not allow others to take advantage of her commitment. She respects her time after work, she respects her weekends, and she respects her need for balance. She stops apologizing for wanting a healthy work-life rhythm. Setting boundaries also means being aware of her emotional triggers. She avoids conversations that drain her. She distances herself from negativity. She refuses to participate in drama, gossip, or toxic cycles. She learns how to protect her mental space by choosing silence over unnecessary arguments, peace over proving a point, and maturity over reaction. With boundaries, she becomes stronger, more self-aware, more focused. People around her begin to respect her more because she respects herself more. She becomes a woman who is no longer afraid to walk alone if walking with others means losing herself. She becomes confident in her decisions, powerful in her presence, and peaceful in her heart. She knows that not everyone will understand her boundaries, and that's okay. She didn't set them for understanding, she set them for protection. She didn't create them to offend people, she created them to honor herself. She has learned that her life becomes lighter, calmer, and more meaningful when she stops overextending herself and starts prioritizing her well-being. A smart woman sets boundaries without guilt because she finally understands that saying yes to herself is the greatest act of empowerment. She knows she deserves respect, support, balance, and peace, and she is not afraid to guard them. She no longer fears losing people, she fears losing herself. And so she chooses herself firmly, gracefully, unapologetically. A smart woman walks away from anything that disrespects her, not because she is weak, but because she finally understands her worth. She realizes that staying in places where she is undervalued slowly kills her spirit, her confidence, and her identity. And she refuses to let anyone or anything take pieces of her soul just to keep a relationship, a job, or a connection alive. She knows that respect is not a privilege she must beg for. It is the minimum she deserves. She learns this lesson through experiences that shaped her, often painfully. She has stayed in situations where she was overlooked, underappreciated, taken for granted, or spoken to in ways that hurt her deeply. She tolerated behavior she should have walked away from long ago. Why? Because she believed that loyalty meant staying even when it hurt. Because she believed that love meant enduring even when she was losing herself. Because she believed that patience meant accepting things that were far below her worth. But life taught her something essential: anything that costs your self-respect is too expensive. And she refuses to pay that price again. Walking away is not easy. It requires courage. It requires clarity. It requires heartbreaking honesty with herself. It means acknowledging that someone she loved cannot love her the way she deserves. It means admitting that a place she gave her best to cannot see her value. It means understanding that not everyone grows with you, and not everyone is meant to stay in your story. Yet, she chooses to walk away, not with anger, not with revenge, but with dignity. She walks away from people who speak to her disrespectfully because she knows that words have the power to wound the invisible parts of her. She refuses to let anyone use their tongue as a weapon against her peace. She knows that repeated disrespect is not a mistake, it is a pattern, and she does not allow patterns like that to shape her life. She walks away from relationships where she is always giving and rarely receiving. She knows that healthy connections do not drain, they nourish. They do not confuse, they clarify. They do not weaken, they strengthen. She stops believing in potential and starts believing in patterns. She pays attention not to what people say, but to how they treat her consistently. She walks away from situations where her kindness is seen as weakness. She no longer allows others to misuse her compassion or take advantage of her patience. She learns that just because she is soft-hearted does not mean she should be soft-headed. She stops explaining her worth to those committed to misunderstanding it. She walks away from places where her voice is ignored, her opinions don't matter, and her presence is not valued. She knows that she deserves to be heard, she deserves to be seen, she deserves to be respected. Silence in the face of disrespect is no longer her option. She walks away from environments that disturb her peace. She understands that peace is one of the truest forms of wealth, and she guards it fiercely. She refuses to participate in drama, chaos, and toxic behavior. She knows that peace is not found by chance. It is created by choice. She walks away from opportunities that require her to compromise her values. She knows that success gained at the cost of integrity is failure in disguise. She chooses authenticity over approval, purpose over popularity, and character over convenience. Walking away does not make her heartless, it makes her powerful. It means she chooses herself instead of choosing pain. It means she honors her emotional boundaries. It means she respects the woman she is becoming. She knows her future depends on the choices she makes today, and she refuses to build her future on disrespect. And something magical happens when she starts walking away from disrespect. She makes space for better things, better people, better opportunities, better energy, better love, better life. She realizes that the moment she stops settling, the universe stops sending situations meant to keep her small. She begins attracting people who value her, appreciate her, and treat her with the kindness she always gave to others. She becomes surrounded by connections that uplift instead of drain, conversations that inspire instead of hurt, and relationships that build instead of break. Walking away is not running away, it is choosing a higher path. It is refusing to argue with someone who is committed to not understanding. It is refusing to lose her dignity to win someone's attention. It is refusing to beg for respect that should come freely. She knows that sometimes the most powerful step she can take is the step out of the door, and she takes it with grace. Because a smart woman knows that respect is the foundation of love, of friendship, of relationships, of life. And without that foundation, everything collapses sooner or later. So she chooses to walk away from anything that disrespects her, quietly, confidently, unapologetically. A smart woman takes responsibility instead of making excuses, because she has learned that excuses keep her stuck, but responsibility sets her free. She understands that her life is shaped not by what happens to her, but by how she chooses to respond. She knows that blaming circumstances, people, or the past may feel comforting for a moment, but it never creates change. So she refuses to surrender her power by blaming anything outside herself. She chooses ownership of her decisions, her growth, and her future. Responsibility is not always comfortable. It requires honesty. It requires courage. It requires looking in the mirror and admitting what needs to change. It means accepting that sometimes she made the wrong choices, trusted the wrong people, stayed in the wrong place, or held on to the wrong things. But instead of drowning in regret, she learns from it. She grows from it. She elevates herself because of it. She understands that life is not supposed to be perfect. Mistakes will happen, setbacks will come, failures will shake her. But in every situation, she asks herself, what can I do about it? That question becomes her anchor. It shifts her from victimhood to leadership. It reminds her that she is not powerless, she is capable, adaptable, and resilient. When things go wrong, she doesn't waste time pointing fingers. She doesn't say, I can't because of them. She says, I will, in spite of them. She knows that if she continues blaming the world, she will remain exactly where she is. But when she takes responsibility, she takes control of her life. She starts steering the direction instead of drifting with the waves. She understands that excuses are just stories we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of growth. They sound like, I don't have time, I'm too busy, it's too late, I don't know how, what if I fail? Every excuse feels protective in the moment, but destructive in the long run. And she learns, sometimes painfully, that excuses steal opportunities, potential, and dreams. So she chooses to act instead of avoid. She chooses to try instead of doubt. She chooses to step forward instead of waiting for the perfect moment. She knows that progress is made through responsibility, not perfection. Taking responsibility also means she stops relying on others to fix her life. She doesn't expect someone to rescue her, validate her, or make her happy. She knows that depending on others for her emotional, financial, or spiritual strength makes her vulnerable to their choices, not her own. Instead, she builds her life on self-reliance. She becomes the backbone of her own journey. Responsibility teaches her discipline. She sets goals and holds herself accountable for reaching them. She understands that dreams without action remain dreams. She shows up consistently even when motivation fades. She keeps going even when progress is slow. She commits even when no one is watching. She realizes that discipline is a form of self-respect. She also takes responsibility for her emotions. She doesn't allow anger, jealousy, or insecurity to control her. Instead, she reflects, understands, and manages her feelings with maturity. She apologizes when she is wrong. She forgives when she is hurt. She lets go when something is no longer good for her. She learns that emotional responsibility is the foundation of inner peace. And responsibility teaches her boundaries. She acknowledges when she has allowed things she shouldn't have. She admits when she stayed longer than she should have. She recognizes when she ignored red flags. And instead of blaming herself harshly, she takes that awareness and transforms it into strength. She decides that from now on, she will not repeat patterns that once caused her pain. Responsibility also builds her confidence. She realizes that every time she takes charge of her life, she becomes stronger. Every time she faces a challenge, instead of avoiding it, she becomes braver. Every time she chooses action over excuses, she becomes more capable. Her confidence doesn't come from compliments or reassurance. It comes from the knowledge that she can depend on herself. A powerful shift happens inside her. She stops saying, "Why is this happening to me?" and starts saying, "What is this trying to teach me?" She understands that life is full of lessons, and responsibility is the key to unlocking those lessons. She knows that the woman she wants to become is created by the actions she takes today. So she builds habits that support her growth. She picks herself up after failures. She adjusts her path when necessary. She understands that responsibility doesn't guarantee an easy life. It guarantees a meaningful one. And because she chooses responsibility, she becomes the type of woman who is trusted, respected, and admired. People look up to her not because she is perfect, but because she is accountable. She does what she says. She stands by her word. She keeps her commitments. Her integrity becomes her identity. A smart woman takes responsibility because she knows it is the only way to transform her life. She knows that no matter how difficult the journey gets, she is capable. She is strong. She is prepared. Responsibility gives her the power to turn her struggles into strength and her dreams into reality. A smart woman takes bold decisions even when she is afraid because she understands that fear is not a stop sign. It is a signal that she is stepping into something bigger than her current reality. She knows that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing to move forward even when her hands shake, even when her heart is uncertain, even when her mind whispers doubts. She knows that if she waits for fear to leave, she will spend her whole life waiting. So she decides to walk with fear instead of waiting to overcome it. She understands that staying in the same place may feel safe, but it will never lead her to the life she dreams of. Comfort might protect her, but it will never elevate her. Growth demands risk. Change demands courage. New chapters demand closing old ones. And every bold decision she makes becomes a doorway to a stronger, wiser, more powerful version of herself. A smart woman has learned through experience that every major blessing in her life came after a moment of bravery. She remembers the times she took a chance when everything inside her said, "What if it doesn't work?" And she remembers how those moments changed her life. She has felt the fear of letting go, the anxiety of uncertainty, the trembling that comes before a big step. But she also remembers the pride she felt when she realized she was capable of more than she imagined. That memory becomes her motivation. She knows that fear is not the enemy. Fear is the mind's way of protecting her. But she gently tells her fear, "Thank you for trying to keep me safe. But I am choosing growth now." And she moves forward. Bold decisions are not made in moments of clarity. They are made in moments of confusion. They happen when the future is unclear, when the path is unknown, when the outcome is unpredictable. But she trusts herself. She trusts her intuition, her strength, her preparation, and her resilience. She knows that even if she falls, she will rise again. She has done it before, and she can do it again. She understands that bold decisions often come with judgment from others. People may doubt her, they may criticize her, they may question her choices. But she no longer lives for the opinions of those who fear risks. She knows that small minds cannot understand big moves. She doesn't explain her vision to people who can't see beyond their own limits. She knows her journey is hers alone. Taking bold decisions also means choosing herself, even when it is difficult. Sometimes she must walk away from familiar people, places, and habits. Sometimes she must leave behind what is comfortable but stagnant. Sometimes she must say no to opportunities that don't align with her values. Sometimes she must say yes to opportunities that terrify her. She listens to the quiet voice within her that whispers, "You were made for more." And she understands something powerful: bold decisions build character. Every time she chooses courage over comfort, she becomes braver. Every time she faces something scary and does it anyway, she becomes stronger. Her confidence grows not from easy experiences, but from the challenges she conquered. She learns that fear loses its power when she moves forward despite it. Bold decisions also require vulnerability. She knows she might fail. She knows things might not go the way she hopes. But she also knows that failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of success. It is a teacher, not an enemy. It reveals her strength, not her weakness. She doesn't fear failing. She fears not trying. She fears looking back one day and realizing she lived a life controlled by fear instead of guided by purpose. A smart woman also knows that bold decisions shape her destiny. They determine the quality of her life, the opportunities she receives, the people she meets, and the places she reaches. She knows that playing small does not protect her, it only limits her. She refuses to dim her light to make others comfortable. She refuses to shrink herself to fit into spaces that were never meant for her. She knows her dreams are too important to postpone. Her future is too valuable to gamble on hesitation. Her potential is too profound to stay buried under fear. So she makes decisions that honor the woman she is becoming, not the woman she used to be. She understands that courage is a muscle, one that strengthens each time she uses it. And so, she keeps challenging herself. She keeps saying yes to opportunities that stretch her. She keeps saying no to limitations that confine her. She keeps stepping forward even when the path feels uncertain. She keeps trusting that she is capable of handling whatever comes next. And perhaps the most powerful thing she learns is this: courage brings rewards that fear could never offer. New experiences, new relationships, new levels of confidence, new sources of happiness, new versions of herself. She realizes that the life she dreams of is on the other side of fear, waiting for her to make a bold move. So she takes bold decisions even when afraid, not because she is reckless, but because she is responsible for her own growth. She chooses courage because she chooses herself. She chooses bravery because she chooses her future. She chooses boldness because she refuses to live a life defined by fear.